I'm Christina Xinrui WANG. Today my topic is bioethanol made from algae. Bioethanol is the most common biofuel that is made from plants. The first generation bioethanol is made from sugar, starch, and cellulose containing plants. Bioethanol made from algae is second generation and it has more advantages. There are several algae species for bioethanol production. Microalgae like spirulina, Chlamydomonas, chlorella, and Cynidesmos are well known to contain a large amount of starch and glycogen, useful as raw materials for ethanol production. Microalgae produces much higher ethanol yield than other plants, which is an advantage of algae. Fermentation process to produce ethanol include the following stages. Firstly, growing starch accumulating filament-forming or colony-forming algae in an aquaculture environment if not available at first. Then harvesting the grown algae to form a biomass, or collecting microalgae if available at first. Then initiating decay of the biomass. Then contacting the decaying biomass with yeast capable of fermenting it to form a fermentation solution, and separating the resulting ethanol from the fermentation solution. Algae production technology includes open ponds and closed culture environment, and solar supports a biomass for both systems. Harvesting the algae from tanks and separating the components from algae are difficult and energy-intensive processes. There are several conventional methods, and centrifugation is mostly used in the lab. Initiating decay means that the biomass is treated in such a way that the cellular structure of the biomass begins to decay and release the carbohydrates. Initiating decay can be accomplished mechanically or non-mechanically, which is by enzyme. This means the starch can be extracted from the cells with the aid of mechanical means or by dissolution of cell walls using enzymes. The enzymes act to break down complex plant wall sugars into simple sugars. Starch is then separated and used for fermentation to yield bioethanol. The sugars are fermented to ethanol by a suitable yeast strain. The yeasts used are typically brewer's yeasts. The act of fermentation ethanol, which is drained from the tank and pumped to a holding tank to be fed to a distillation unit. The ethanol is purified by distillation to remove water and other impurities in the diluted alcohol product. This is fermenter and this is the final product of ethanol. Here is an example overview process of bioethanol produced from algae, which is a process used by the company of Algae biofuels. This direct-to-ethanol technology uses sunlight, algae, non-arable land, and carbon dioxide to economically produce ethanol, a valuable commodity, and waste biomass that can be converted into other biofuels. Algae systems has so many advantages which the first generation bioethanol doesn't have, such as fast growing, provide feedstock for other different types of renewable fuels, can harvest all year round, don't use arable land, use less fresh water, fix carbon dioxide, and so on. The usage of bioethanol is not only about transport fuel, but also chemicals and fuel cells, which are another potential area for ethanol use to produce heat and power. Ethanol production worldwide has strongly increased since the oil crisis in 1970. In Brazil, the ethanol use as biofuel is very common, and the US also takes the most percentage of the total production. In 2005, the world bioethanol production reached 17 million tons, and the growth of production is a lot in Brazil, US, European Union, China, and India. Now, 1 liter ethanol worth $2.5 in market. The US has gained hundreds of millions of dollars of benefits from ethanol market and employment opportunities provided by manufacturers. Even if the bioethanol used as renewable fuel is one of the positive trends for sustainable development, there are some difficulties in production and consumption, but in conclusion, bioethanol production from algae has great potential for sustainable development. Even there are still challenges to be solved, and it needs more studies in the future to solve these troubles.